We just released a powerful, exciting new feature at Sequin called Enrichment. Enrichment lets you take the rows and change messages from your Postgres database and enrich them with fields from other tables in your database before sending those messages downstream to destinations like Kafka, search indexes, caches, and more. Let me show you what I mean. A very common situation is that you have tables in your database and you want to keep those tables up to date in your search index, but perhaps the tables in your database are missing certain fields that you want to appear in that collection in the search index. So in the example here, we have a books table that points to an authors table, and books don't have the author name on them, right? We have a normalized schema, so the books have an author ID. The author's name is actually over here, but over in the search index, we want to basically combine these two objects by enriching the book object with fields from the authors table. So how do we do that? The first step is to connect your database to Sequin. Here I have a test database ready to go, all configured. Sequin will walk you through all the setup steps. Test the connection, create it, looks healthy, great. Over on the Syncs tab, we can create a sync. We'll use Meilisearch for this demo here, and we'll stream the books table. And Sequin comes with a lot of power and functionality around your sync pipeline. So you can filter messages, group them, of course, enrich them as we'll see, transform, backfills. To get started, let's start with a very naive, just point-to-point without any configuration or customization of Meilisearch. So I'm going to go grab the URL here for my cluster as well as the API key. And let's just see what it looks like without any customization. We're going to books, Meilisearch sync books, test that, looks great, create the sync. And now if I make an update to the books table, we will see that flow through Sequin and then to Meilisearch. Go ahead and refresh here. Sometimes Meilisearch takes just a moment to show. There we go. And this is the default shape that comes through Sequin. So we have everything from the old values of the record. This is the current version of the record, a lot of metadata about the commit. For a search index, we really just care about this record. So that's going to be our first step. Our first step is going to be to extract this record out and just make this the object over here. And then the second step, of course, is to run that enrich function or that enrich step to add the author name. So you'll notice we have an author ID here, but we really want the author name to be inside of this object in our search collection. So let's start with that transform. If we go to the functions tab, we can create a transform and we'll call this record only. And you get the full power of Elixir. So you can customize your transform function with the full programming language here inside of Sequin. We're going to just return, we get the action, record changes, metadata. We're just going to return the record. And you can see below an example of what that output might look like. Now Sequin is producing a synthetic event to give me this example, but I can capture a real event if I tell it what table I care about, books. So it looks like it has one already kind of cached here for books, and this is great. So I've got the output of an example of what it's going to look like in Meilisearch, and that looks just like what we want. So I can go ahead and create that function. And now if I add that to my pipeline here under transforms and update it, and then we make this change, this row over Meilisearch, we will see that this record was upserted over, and now, yes, Meilisearch is going to do a merge there by default. So the best thing to do with this test record is to delete it, and then I can change it again. And now we have the shape that we want, which is just the record object itself. Now for the exciting part, which is to add the author name to this record. So back in Sequin, we're going to add an enrichment function and choose enrich. We'll call this enrich book. And you'll see that an enrich function is a SQL query. This is a SQL query that we run against your source database. And I'll walk you through it. So the important part to start with is the where clause. This $1 is going to be bound to a list of book IDs. These are the book IDs that are changing, that are streaming out of your database, right? So, and we run these queries in batches for efficiency, which is why it's a list of book IDs. So this is going to be, book ID equals any. And that means that this core table we're selecting from is always going to be that source table where the messages are coming from. So we're going to do a select from books where book ID equals that. Okay, now the next step, now that I have these two components, is one of the rules is I need to return the book ID as part of the select query. This is what helps Sequin match the rows coming back from the enrich query with the message coming from the database. And finally, I can join the books against, in our case, authors, and we'll join on b.authorid equals a.id. And then of course up here, we'll do a.name equals, in our case, author name, right? And if I scroll down, I'll see that Sequin is actually running the SQL query against my source database. And we have an error here, and that's because these tables are inside of the demo schema. So I'll go ahead and namespace those appropriately. And great, now it works. And I think right here, Sequin guessed like just ID 1, and it managed to hit an actual row here. But again, I can go ahead and put books in, and now it's using one of the sample messages it grabbed from earlier, from that earlier mutation. It has an ID of 10. And this is what the enrichment output is going to look like. It's going to have that author name, and then this is the book ID that grabbed that. So this is my enrich function. Now, with the enrichment function, I just need to modify the transform to ensure we're not just returning the record, but also the enrichment. So the enrichment lives on metadata. And so I can do a map.merge record and then metadata.enrichment. And I happen to know that some of my books don't have authors. I've got kind of a bad data set. So if there is no author, the enrichment will return nil. So we'll just fall back to an empty map if the author doesn't exist. And there just will be no author name on that collection or that record. So with the enrichment function ready, we can hit update here on our transform. And now let's plug that in to our pipeline. So the transform is already in here. Let's plug in the enrichment. And then let's modify this record again. And now over in our search index, we can see the author name is now here. So we have our core book fields enriched with the author name from a totally different table. Now this is great, but I have a bunch of books, and I just set up this wonderful pipeline, and I got a bunch of books over my database, and I have one record over in Meilisearch. So Sequin has backfills for this exact purpose. And so we'll go to the backfills tab, run a backfill on demo books. Now you can run a partial backfill by using like a date time to say, hey, just backfill the last 30 days worth of items or whatever it is, but we'll do a full backfill for these purposes. Hit start backfill. The backfill is already completed. There's only 75 rows in there. And now if I go over to Meilisearch, I'm going to see all of my books from my database over in Meilisearch. They've been transformed to the exact shape that I want, and they include the author name. So every one of them has been enriched with that author name. Super cool. And of course, the best part is right here, I've got a storm of swords and I get a little excited and I want to add some exclamation points to that. Of course, that's going to propagate through in real time. The only thing I'm battling here is this search preview, and we can see the title has been updated over in Meilisearch. So my database and my search index are totally in sync. So with Sequin, we can set up a data pipeline with rich steps, including enrichment with other tables, transforms, to get the data into the exact shape that we want, send it to our search index, of course, backfill all the rows from our table into the search index, and then as those rows change in the database, we propagate it in real time to the search index to keep it up to date. The two things totally in sync. It's really phenomenal. We're super excited about enrichment. We think this is going to be big for all of our syncs, but especially the search indexes and caches where these joins are so important. So give this a shot. We can't wait to hear what you think. We're in Discord and Slack. If you run into any issues or have any feedback for us, this is a new feature. We're going to release a lot more around it soon, but we'd love to hear your feedback or help you out if you have any trouble at all. Thank you.